Angel Heart Radio programs should not be used to replace your legal or medical advice. Welcome everyone to Angel Heart Radio. You are our focus. We want you to know that you matter in the world and that you're important to the world. We're here to remind you of just how valuable and needed you are right now. Help us to help others. If you like what you hear, tell your friends, post, tweet, pin, let everyone know how amazing Angel Heart Radio is. So again, welcome to Angel Heart Radio. Powered by love, Angel Heart Radio is sponsored by AngelLight777.com.
Hello everyone, Annette McCoy joining you as I regularly do at this time on a Wednesday morning in Melbourne, Australia. Wherever you are, thank you for taking the time to listen to us here on Angel Heart Radio. If you happen to be listening for the first time, or maybe you haven't been with us for a while, are you aware of all of the wonderful programs that we now present? I mean, we've been presenting on Angel Heart Radio. Gorgeous Anaya Holili started this network over 8 years ago. And there is a plethora of shows that you can listen to if you go into angelheartradio.com. For an even better treat, why not go to Anaya's personal website, Angel Light, there's a double L in there, angellight777.com. Today, I have my regular guest at the beginning of each month, Marney Perna, and we're going to be speaking about ways to cope with your stress. Now, Marney, as well as being a presenter here with me on Angel Heart Radio, is an author. Marney has written the book Creating Calm Amid Chaos. Marney is a kinesiologist. She's an international speaker, workshop facilitator, you name it. Marney is. I haven't even mentioned the fact that she's a loving wife, daughter, mother, grandmother. The list goes on and on and on. Welcome once again, Marney, to the radio waves of Angel Heart Radio.
Oh, thank you, Annette. What a lovely blessing that you've just given me. Beautiful. And for all the listeners listening, I'm in Australia as well, and I live in Queensland, which is many kilometres away from Melbourne. And, so we're spread apart, but we're able to chat quite easily.
And isn't that wonderful, the amazing abilities these days through technology? I was at a conference at the weekend, and honestly, it continues to astound me just what can be done from a small device such as a phone or, of course, laptops. It's really interesting how we have come to, a lot of us depend on our phones.
Yeah, we depend on our devices, and it's really, it's opened such doors of opportunity for all of us. I can remember, Annette, when we first started doing the radio shows, you and I were stumbling along doing the best we could. But it's taught us to trust the process as well, and that if it doesn't work for whatever reason, there's often another bit that we need to either learn or do, or sometimes just relax and not let it stress us, not add to our stress of life.
It's interesting, the start that I found myself having this morning to the show was a classic, because the show is about 10 simple ways to cope with your stress. And it really is up to us. Am I going to be stressed? Or do I know that, yes, I'm going to be able to do things? Now, I managed this morning to make 2 very important phone calls and also hang out some washing, because here in Melbourne, spring is here, and it's unusual. It's unusual to have beautiful sunshine plus a gentle breeze. So I have some washing on the line. And it was a case of, whoa, I've got 5 minutes. Yes, I can do it. And
Yeah.
although I knew that on one level, I'm well aware that my body is still responding or trying to let go of the tension that I put myself under. I didn't need to do that. However, classic and great for being able to introduce this topic, Marnie, because I can say, hey, I'm not stressed, and yet my body is telling me, yes, you were.
Yeah. Stress itself is not the problem. So our bodies are built or created to cope with a lot of stress. It's only when stress becomes unmanageable or comes from many different aspects that we find we get overwhelmed. So just remember that stress can be a motivator as well. So there are people that work really well under pressure, for example, and they don't find the stress of pressure affects them as much. But they might find another aspect of their life won't be coping so much with the pressure.
Right.
And let's face it,
I like that.
We live in a world where there is always going to be some form of stress or some form of extra challenge that you're going to either face or cope with. And I had a classic. You had the classic with washing this morning. Mine was yesterday. You know, I was happily going along. I didn't have a busy day planned. Patted the dog and found a rather large paralysis tick on his neck. So suddenly I'm going, oh, okay, now I need to deal with this. So if you're living on a tightrope or you're wound to such an extent that your spring is ready to just unravel, finding that tick will be the drip that goes into Henry, the stress bucket, and overflows. Because I know myself, I know to give myself permission to nurture and self-love and to empty as much of the little stress out of Henry, I was able to say, oh, okay, well, there's nothing a lot happening. I can just ring the vet. I got into the vet. He hasn't had a great reaction to the tick, which is marvellous. He did stay in the clinic yesterday, but it just meant that it wasn't an extra drop that caused my bucket to overflow. I was able to cope and be resilient and even have clarity of thought to be able to do what I had to do.
I liked, Marnie, the terminology that you used as well, because so often it can be the words that tend to impact on us. You know, stress is something, you're right, we all need stress in our lives. Otherwise, boom, we're not, because as you say, we can be driven by stress. So it's not so much the stress, it's how we cope with it or how we deal with it and what we see as stressful, because what might be stressful to me wouldn't necessarily be stressful to somebody else.
Yeah.
And so for us to be able to deal, to see what is it that puts me under pressure.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I share with my clients a lot is if you can identify some of the smaller aspects of stress that affects you individually in your life and your health, your wealth, your business, your personal life, whatever, it doesn't matter what it is. Identification or education is the key. It's a powerful key that gives you tools to cope with other things. So if you know, just for example, take food. If you know that gluten affects your body and adds further stress to your wellness, avoid it. But if you don't know that gluten is affecting you, you'll just keep eating it and it'll keep affecting you. So knowledge is power. So if you can step back, and I teach my clients to literally take a step back from where they're standing. That's taking action for your body. So step back and suddenly you've got a little bit of space between you and what that stress trigger is. And it's amazing how much clarity can come if you're not in the middle of the stress reaction. If you can step away from it or look into it or put a different hat on your head so that you're talking from a different perspective. You know, we are many people in one. So if you're being stressed as the mother, well, put on the educator's hat or put on the health hat or just a friend's hat, and suddenly it won't feel as overwhelming and you'll think, oh, well, as a friend I could say do this. So there's ways that you can deal with your immediate stress trigger, and education is that power. Identify the stressor.
Indeed. I love it, because isn't that is one of the golden keys to life. When we're aware of what is pushing our buttons, that's when we can then make decisions about how we would like to act, respond.
Absolutely. And because you just mentioned a golden key, I will tell you that I drew 2 angel cards this morning for the show, and they're from the beautiful Archangel Michael Sword and Shield Oracle from Michelle Newton. And one of them is the fact that the missing key of the puzzle is what helps you cope best with life. So one of the golden keys from the Archangel Michael is identifying the missing piece of the puzzle, or knowing that it'll come to you. So if you're working on a challenge at the moment and it's just not coming together, trust that your angels are working behind the scenes and they are finding what you need, and it will be delivered to you.
Gorgeous. Those beautiful angels. How often do we remember to ask for protection? Somebody was asking me, excuse me, a gorgeous friend I'm going to take a wonderful magical trip with next month. And she was asking me about travel insurance, and I'm very fortunate, mine is covered with my credit card because I use it for purchases, etc., etc. Anyway, I said, I ask for protection. And I know that Anea, our gorgeous creator and executive producer of Angel Heart Radio, whenever she steps into her car, she asks for the most benevolent outcome in safety for herself and all others on the road. And no matter where we go, Marnie, it's so important and so empowering to simply ask for the care, the protection, the love that we might require. We might be going into an interview. We might be realizing that there's going to be a confrontation or whatever. Whenever we feel that we're going into a dicey situation, if you like, our angels are there waiting to help us. All they need is the key, and that is we need to ask for what it is that we would like.
Absolutely. And we need to know that it's okay to ask. And something that you and I have spoken about lots of times on Angel Heart Radio is the fact that we can ask for the angel assistance in human time as well. So, angels are, they don't have humans create time. So it's a human thing that created, 60 minutes in an hour and 24 hours in a day and things like that. Angels don't have to work via a clock or by days or times or minutes. So for them, theirs is universal. So it's in infinite. It's not finite. It's infinite. So I have found that if I ask my angels for a response in human time, I actually find I get better outcomes.
Right.
And I can give you a classic example of that happened recently for me. And it was, we share about how if you find a 5 or 10 cent piece on the ground, that it's angels speak. And if you're pondering on a challenge or a question, finding that money on the ground is the angel saying, look, we've got you covered, you're on the right track, something's going on. It's also a confirmation from our loved ones to say hi. So you might be thinking about them and suddenly you find 5 cents. And to me, it's an absolute blessing, and I always pick it up and say thank you. And the other day I was driving back from a friend's house where we'd been doing some work, and I just said, I touched base with my guardian angel at the moment, Carmel, who's my mum, and I said, hey, Mum, I haven't had a message for a little while. I said, how about $1? Give me $1. I'm going to be really rude here and say, I haven't had a note. So I said, $20 would be awesome. And left it at that and thought, oh, yeah, that'll be good. So I went shopping, I finished my shop. I went back to the car, took my groceries out, and the parking thing was a little bit away, but I thought, I'll be a good girl and I'll take my trolley back. So I've locked the car again, and I've walked across to the trolley bay, and just out of the peripheral vision, I saw something on the ground. Now, I did a double take, because when I saw it, I really did not believe what I was seeing. But when I looked closely, I went, oh my goodness, I have just found a $10 note on the ground. Now, I have never before found what I call big dollars on any ground anywhere. 5 cents, 10 cents, occasional $2. But this was like a $10 note just folded up, sitting beside the trolley bay in the middle of a parking lot. And I'm going, oh my God. Right. So I quickly bent down and said, oh, how blessed am I? Thank you so much, Mum. What a gift.
Yeah.
I then had that response, oh my God, I hope the person who's lost it isn't destitute. And then I realised that I didn't need to worry about that. The angels were giving me a blessing. They gave it to me in human time. They didn't give me $20, but then my favourite colour is blue, and the $10 note was blue. So for me, it was all about, relative to the kind. But how awesome was that? And what an instant response that I received, and that blessing from the angels was, But had I not been thinking about it, if that had not been part of my conscious awareness, I don't think I would have seen the note. I would have just put the trolley in and left again. But it became part of my energy field. So
right.
I was gobsmacked. I was really, I just thought it was the best thing. It's one
gorgeous.
Of those serendipitous times that you go, oh, how blessed am I?
Absolutely. I might share with you and the listeners, a friend of mine had an experience recently where she was about to cross the road, and all of a sudden this van came around the corner at such speed that she thought, oh my goner. She screamed. She just could not see how she was going to get out of it. She couldn't. And all of a sudden, she felt herself lifted up. And it was as though her arms were being pulled. She felt as though she was being pulled through the air. And she landed on all fours on the median strip, unscathed. Very shaken, unscathed. And there was a woman standing on the side of the road, and she had screamed because she too thought, oh my goodness, this woman is a goner. Needless to say, the driver was absolutely shell-shocked. The thing is, how wonderful. This woman realised her time was not yet.
Yeah.
She honestly believed that it was angelic intervention.
How beautiful.
The fact that there was somebody else there to witness it. I
always
always find that so important, Marnie. I know an experience that I had, went down to a beach one night, and I love being on the beach on my own in the evening. I just think that I love being on the beach on my own, full stop, but especially in the evening. And this particular night, there was a couple on the beach, and I couldn't I went, oh, what are they doing on my beach?
Yes,
well, they were there. So I could appreciate an experience that I had. And so, likewise, there was a witness to this. So this girlfriend of mine could fully appreciate what had actually happened, and she just hopes that the driver, too, got such a scare that he will slow down and be a more responsible driver.
Yeah. It's magical, isn't it? It's so unexplainable, some of these situations, and you have to trust and accept. So that's the thing. So we're talking about stress today. So we need the listeners to know that stress is part of their life, and that's okay. But to do as much as they can to alleviate the build-up of unnecessary stress as they can, because that way their stress bucket will be empty enough for them to cope and be resilient with one of life's challenges. Because if they have got no space left in their stress bucket, their life energy will be totally depleted. and they really will find it not as easy to cope with another everyday experience. So you need to learn techniques and tools to help yourself.
Right, because it is interesting, isn't it, that saying, the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah.
And that's what you're getting to with Henry. We can cope, and yet as the stress builds up, it might be something really tiny that tips that bucket over.
It is generally a small incident that flicks the button. That, you know, it's like the dripping tap. There can be a bucket under a tap of water that has got a light drip to it, which as a single drop will not make a big difference. But if that drop continues to go into the bucket, it will eventually fill it up so that the last drip, which is still only a very small drop, can make the bucket overflow. So you need to honour yourself and nurture yourself and go, okay, what are the things I need to do that help me cope with my everyday life so that if a larger stress situation or challenge comes along, I've got the tenacity to be able to do something about it. And, you know, they're not always unknown things that you need to do because, you know, when I have clients come to see me, when we come up with solutions or their body says, well, okay, this is how I'm feeling really stressed, and if I just do this, I'll feel better, the just do this is not generally something unknown. It's something that when mentioned, the person goes, oh, my God, I love that. Or that is so helpful, or that makes such sense to me. So they're not unknown things. They're things the body knows. It already is vibrating at a level that it says, you know, if you can actually find out or identify what I need, I know it will help me. So, you know, and one of the simplest things to remember is you need to be grounded. We need to have our feet planted firmly enough on terra firma that we can flex and flow with life. And there are many ways of being grounded. There's not just one. And, you know, sometimes it's simply as simple as stamping your feet on the ground and going, I'm on the ground. I am grounded. You know, don't make it complicated. Complicated doesn't work.
No. We did say 10 simple ways to cope with your stress.
We did, yes. So
now, Marnie, before you go into explanations, I was going to suggest that we give out the number so that people can ring in because they might have a question. Listeners, you might like to share an experience. Marnie and I have both shared experiences this morning. Now, the area code that you need to ring is 714, followed by 583 6858. Very easy for people in the United States. For those of us elsewhere, please put +1 in front of that number, 714 583 6858. And of course, you can also make comments via the chat room, and we love interaction, whether it be over the phone or in the chat room. Now, Marnie, you're going to enlighten us a little further.
I was just going to say, often people, when they're not grounded, a visual that helps people understand how they're feeling is, you know, when you're passing a car yard or there's a big event happening sometimes and there's a big balloon person. I call it the balloon man. You know, it's anchored, but it's flowing all over the place. People that don't feel fully grounded feel a little bit like that balloon man. They haven't got the core stability to be stable. So they're sort of floating all over the place without a lot of ability to do what they need to do. So if you do not want to be the balloon man, learn grounding techniques. And I can share a couple with you, and I'm sure, Annette, you have a couple as well. But some of the more unusual grounding techniques that I have used with clients, excuse me, is I once had to get a big burly army man to put his feet in a pillowcase full of freshly mowed grass for his grounding. And it was one of the most bizarre kind of things that I had to come up with. But when I said it to this particular gentleman, he went, "Oh my God, my favourite smell in the world is fresh cut grass." And that's,
wow.
I love being connected to nature. And like, he was this big, big soldier. And I really am sitting there going, "Oh my God, I have to tell him to shove his feet in a pillowcase full of freshly cut grass." And I really didn't know how that was going to go. But he took to it like a duck to water, and he said even the image of that was enough to stabilise him.
Right.
He was dealing with a lot of post-traumatic stress disorder and a lot of flashbacks and things like that. And even the thought of doing it triggered his response to feeling grounded. And it really helped him. He mentioned it several times for years later that was one of the things that helped him cope when he felt out of contact with his own body. So
right. Now, I would
unusual.
imagine that you intuited that thought.
Yeah, well, it was with muscle testing. We asked the questions, and this was what
right.
came up. So we knew it was walking on the grass, but it was a specific, not just the grass. It was, for him, it was cutting the grass. So maybe the action of mowing was a bit calmative for him as well. The smell definitely connected to his olfactory senses of calmness. And I think, too, with him, it was normality, because he dealt with a lot of overseas, what do they call it when they go sent overseas, placements overseas in war-torn areas. So,
right.
The last thing you're going to do when you're overseas or in danger like that is mow the grass. So for him, the act of mowing the grass was quite a normal, everyday, calmative thing to do, right? But it was also the connection from the earth and connecting to that grass that gave him that anchoring.
Right.
So, as I said, it was very empowering for him and for me.
Mm-hmm.
So what's one of your grounding tips?
That's a very, very good question. Because sometimes I'm in the car and I'll say, "Oh, I need to ground myself because I feel as though I'm anywhere but where I am." Sometimes I'm on automatic pilot, and that's not good when I'm driving.
So how do you do that?
Yes. Yeah. I do.
Is it that statement or?
Sorry, what was that?
Is it the statement that makes you, like the fact you need to be mindful, that grounds you?
Yes, in that instance, definitely. Yes. And I must admit, walking on the ground, like on natural surfaces, like grass or
the beach.
The beach,
the sand. Walking on the sand is very grounding.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So another simple one that a lot of natural therapists and people that work in the metaphysical field use is imagery. So if you stand still and then imagine that your feet, or not imagine your feet, but stand so you can feel your feet on the ground. But just imagine your feet are anchoring to the earth. So you're sending down beautiful big energy fields through the earth to a big rock or something underneath, and you're gripping hold of it so that you're feeling stabilized. Because if we feel as though we're standing in shifting sand, or we're walking on eggshells, or we're not connecting to the earth, we're not walking purposefully. So we are walking in a different dimension. So we're not anchored enough to be able to make decisions or to be able to deviate from the pathway. So we need to feel grounded within ourselves.
Yes. Cool. Now, Marnie, what other suggestions? We're talking about Henry as the stress bucket. I mean, let's face it, we can call it anything. I know that you call it Henry. And and it's so important for us to, as you mentioned with this beautiful soldier person, that we do things that resonate for ourselves. And that's why Marnie and I, this morning, listeners, have been talking about angels. It might be that you connect with God or the universe. You might connect with your higher self, your own intuition. It's whatever works for each of us. And by sharing our ideas. That's what I love about Angel Heart Radio and the opportunities that it presents for me, because I'm learning from callers all the time. I'm learning from the other presenters who are with me. And I'm also being given the opportunity to share my own experiences and thoughts. And what I need to reiterate here is that they are at the moment, Marnie and I are sharing our own thoughts and experiences. And please take them in good faith. However, what resonates with you? That's what we're trying to extend, your own thought patterns, and hopefully we're giving you suggestions that might help you in how to deal with daily life. Because what I'm after is helping myself and others to be the best that we can possibly be. To live in love and joy.
I believe it's our number one reason for existence. We are here personally to experience joy and happiness in our lives for ourself, number one. So self-nurturing and self-love first. Then, when we've experienced it for ourselves, we have the energy to share it with at least one other, and our job's done. So, some people spend their life wondering what their sole purpose is. Well, sometimes your sole purpose is to find joy and happiness. And that very simple question is, what makes you happy, is something that a lot of people under a lot of stress and duress or overwhelm cannot answer that question. Because their energy is so taken up with coping and just existing that the thought of happiness, oh my God, what's that? That's something, I can't deal with that right now. I'm too busy being stressed. But what is often forgotten is that joy and happiness fills your life energy. And if you've got a fuller life energy, you cope better with stress. So that's where a couple of, if clients are listening for the first time and are wondering why we're referring to Henry. Henry is an analogy that I use. You can imagine you have a line running through the middle of your body, and on either side you've got a bucket. Now one bucket is your stress bucket, and that affects your life. The other bucket is your life energy, and that is what gives you your immune response. It gives you your clarity, it gives you your vision, it gives you hope. If your immune response is low, the stress bucket is generally high. And to be able to connect that with clients, I came up with the name of the stress bucket. So my stress bucket is called Henry, and hence the life energy, his friend, is Deliza, and it comes from the song There's a Hole in the Bucket. Now I was doing another podcast a couple of months ago with a lady talking about stress in business and how do you cope with big calamities and stuff like that in business. And when we got to the end of the show, the young gentleman who was doing some of the recording says, "You've got no idea." He said, "My puppy is called Henry and he gives me lots of stress." So he really connected to the stress of the name. So, yeah. So it doesn't have to be Henry. So you can call it whatever you want. If you have a Henry in your life that is not a stress, don't call it Henry. No. Come up with another name. But it's just an analogy. It's just an example of, if you can imagine that it's called something and your life energy is called something else, it helps you to know that I've got to delete some of the stress and build up some of the life energy.
Right.
And your joy and happiness is your number one step. Grounding is another one. Smiling is my top favourite way of getting some of the stress out of Henry. A smile lights another person's soul. It's a permission to talk about happy times. It releases happy hormones. It's free. It's contagious. It's universal. A smile is universal, and everyone knows what a smile means.
Also, when I smile, I feel better within myself.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And when you're not feeling better, smile anyhow, because, it just helps to lighten the load.
If I feel that my look is serious, I'll break into a smile. And the other thing, laughter, Marnie, But being able to laugh at ourselves is so important. I've just
Absolutely.
noticed lately, I do, some rather silly things, and I'll be laughing. Like the other day. Fortunately, it didn't harm the car. Hopefully it might do it some good. But I put the incorrect petrol into my car instead of, well, it was still unleaded, fortunately, but it was top of the range instead of what I use. And I couldn't work out why it was taking so much petrol. It was like, what?
Yeah.
Well, I just laughed so much because I thought I'd gone in thinking, oh, well, petrol's lowish at the moment. I'll fill up. Well, fill up I did.
Yeah.
At 20 cents more a litre more than what I would normally pay. However, how fortunate that A, it didn't add to my stress bucket. In fact, it lessened it because I had a really good laugh at myself. And yes, it was able to cope with the situation.
Yes.
We have a caller, Marnie.
Oh, how exciting.
How
Hello,
nice.
caller.
I'd like to welcome. I do believe it's Bob. Welcome to Angel Heart Radio.
Hello, Bob. Bob's gone quiet.
Interesting. Okay. We might have the situation, Bob might need to call back in because we weren't able to hear him, which is a bit sad. Yeah. All right, or he might like to make some comments in
the chat.
The chat room, which God bless you, Bob, that's what you have done. I have removed unnecessary stress from my life, and I giggle a lot. Ha ha.
Oh, well done.
So, yeah, way. So you might like to ring in and show us how you have. Well, let's just see. That magical little one might make all the difference. Bob, welcome to Angel Heart Radio.
Okay, can you hear me?
We can, yes.
Certainly.
Welcome, Bob.
Yeah. My computer gremlins had muted my microphone.
We know your grief.
Yeah, ladies, I'd quickly like to share how I have removed unnecessary stress from my life. And for the majority of my adult life, I was in automotive research. And I have an amazing intellect. It's not a boast, it's just I'm gifted with a really expensive power tool, if you like. But at that time, and for that time, my head was like a tree full of chattering monkeys. And so about 10 years ago, I developed a regime whereby I could silence the mind. And it came through the realization that my mind is just a tool that I use when I choose, for I am so much more than my mind.
Yep.
So that helped me to quieten my mind, because now I treat it like my puppy dog. When my mind gets feisty, I throw it a stick. I say, off you go, mind. Do some research on free energy and come back and report to me. So off it goes, wagging its little tail, because it's had some attention from the master, me. It comes back, reports to me. I give it a bone, pat it on the head and say, okay, mind, back in your basket.
Yeah.
That's one method. And the other liberating position that I took is I am master and commander of my life, and I am totally responsible for everything that happens in my life, for I create it. So whether it's good or bad, or right or wrong, I have created it. And so I've got nobody else to blame but me. And I never worry about the why, because the why is always in the past. And I live in the now. And the answer to the why is always the same. I have created this event, and it holds a lesson for me. What is the lesson I need to learn from that event? And then finally, as a mature adult, entering his fifth childhood, I would, meeting my needs is my job and my job alone. So it's food, clothing, shelter, nature, nurture. So looking at the topic of nurture, it is my job to nurture me. And so now, in my life, whatever is not nurturing for me, I simply call the beast, and I no longer feed the beast. So anything that is not nurturing for me, I do not give my attention to. I give my attention to peace, harmony, cooperation, and noticing when I'm in the zone.
Yeah.
I love and I just do more of that. And I giggle so much now, I think giggling is about the only exercise I get every day now.
Yeah. When my mum giggled, her whole body giggled with her. It was lovely.
Yeah, it's great exercise, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's great, yeah.
That's really good, Bob. It's good that you've identified things that help you. And by sharing that, other people will go, oh, my God, that could work for me as well. So that's really good.
Well, I think one thing that's missing in Western society is there is no longer the rite of passage from like a juvenile to emotional and spiritual maturity. In our tribal and community days, we went through a rite of passage which usually involved the participant facing their own death. Leaping off a tree with a vine around your ankle, or diving off a high cliff into the ocean. All these tribal cultures had a rite of passage. For me, I faced my own death probably about a dozen times in my life, and so I don't take anything seriously. Most of all, me. So many people take themselves so seriously, don't they?
Yeah, and that when they're too serious, their ego steps in as well. So.
Yes.
Thank
but
you for sharing, Bob.
I do believe
Thank you.
The way forward is just for all of us to share our own truth, because I do not have anybody's answers, but just by sharing, I might have their questions.
Yes.
And
that's why we share on the radio show. It's
great. That's why I call in.
People can listen at any time and get the right show at the right time. It's just usually perfect. Yeah. So thank you very much.
Well, there are no coincidences, hey?
No.
I've got to play with me dogs
Absolutely
now.
not.
Woof, woof, woof.
Yeah, go and throw a stick. I love that.
Well, yeah. What I really resonate too with what Bob shared then is that we create our own reality. And what was mentioned to me at the weekend was that, yes, we've created a situation, so therefore it's possible for us to uncreate the situation. And the gentleman who was speaking about this at the weekend has managed to heal his own health several times because he has taken that attitude. I've created this, let me uncreate it. And like Bob, Peter was talking about the power of the mind. And it's so true. We create what we focus on. And sometimes we're unaware of how much focus we are giving to something that in actual fact is negative rather than positive.
Yeah. So with my kinesiology clinics and things like that, that's the one thing is we can, when we're working on it with a client on a specific goal, when we identify the emotion that is causing that stress trigger, it empowers them to understand that that is affecting their lives in a negative way. So how can they turn that around so that there's a positive outcome rather than a negative outcome? Because our emotions come visiting for our life, like they're part of our danger response. So if the body feels for whatever reason that it's in danger, it'll give you a message. Now, unless you can give that message a word or an understanding, you can't do anything about it, because how can you do something about something you don't know? So, that comes back to that education key again. What am I doing that's causing me to feel like this? Or what is the word that I feel? So if it's a word, sometimes that's easier than understanding the whole concept. Well, when that word comes through, just go, oh, my God, I didn't realise that that's how I felt. But once you know how you felt, you can do something about it. It's a tool. Okay, I feel sad. Okay, well, what makes me happy?
Yeah.
I feel unwell. Well, what makes me well? I feel, dejected and unloved. Well, how can I feel grateful and nurtured? So think about it that way. Just swap the words over and just say, if you feel this, what is the plus side of that, or what is the positive aspect of that? How would you rather feel?
Wonderful, wonderful tips. I hope that our listeners are receiving as much out of this show as I am, Marnie. We've managed to giggle a lot, which is very good, as well
we always do.
as share.
we always
right.
do.
Some basic tips. And how often are we needing to be reminded of the basics? I know when I used to teach yoga, instruct in yoga classes, it was a case of, well, let's revisit the basics. And even if we've practiced yoga for a long time, sometimes we forget about the simple things, and we can use that situation here as well. We're all aware that, yes, we have stress in our lives, and when it becomes too much, how are we able to deal with it? And let's face it, we all deal with it, some of us in a more positive way than others. And what we're trying to do today, I believe, Marnie, is to remind us all of the simple ways that we can deal with life's pressures.
Yes. And look, we add a lot of pressure to our own lives sometimes as well. I think we have to realise that there's a couple of, I like to give names to things, but there's a couple of acronyms that are running around, and one is FOMO. And FOMO is the fear of missing out. Okay? And FOMO causes us to do things sometimes that, even though we know we shouldn't, we think, maybe I should anyhow. And shiny bright objects is one of its friends. So FOMO and shiny bright objects are good mates. So we often get sidetracked and distracted by the shiny bright objects because we fear we're missing out on something. So learn to understand where some of your stresses come out, and some of that fear of missing out is, I'm not as good as this person, or I haven't learnt this, or I don't know how to do this, or I haven't got this, so therefore I can't do something else. So give yourself a break sometimes. And we are individual people, and that was your message before, is that we're all individuals, and we deal with life in our personal way, not in someone else's way. So as much as we might aspire to be as good as, I'm talking on a business level, as someone who's in business or been in business differently or doing it differently, we're our own person. So start to honour yourself and go, you know what? Yes, that's something to look forward to being, or I'd like to be at that level or do something, but this is me doing it. And when I look at your and my journey on Angel Heart Radio, and Annea's as well for that, when she first started the radio show 8 years ago, this was not normal. Podcasts weren't even spoken about, but we have been doing podcasts for 8 years.
Yes.
So we've been shining the way in our field for a very long time, and don't realise that we're being very innovative in what we're doing. We think, we're not as good as we haven't got 12 million listeners. Well, who cares? The people that need to listen to our shows and get benefit and help from it.
Yes.
So, what a gift to the universe was Annette and her dream of this show. And the ability of everyday people like you and I being able to impart our wisdom and to share our knowledge with our listeners.
Yes. It is. It's amazing. Blog Talk Radio and other such providers are doing such a wonderful job, and people might be home alone, then they don't have to feel lonely.
No.
And I know we have many people listen to the radio through the night. They have it there as their comfort. Well, not only do we have local radio stations, we have podcasts that can be listened to whenever, wherever.
Absolutely.
I do smile, Marnie. Bob in the chat room has said, I love strawberry yoga. And it made me remember that my gorgeous twin sons, who now happen to be 33, when they were little tackers and I was teaching yoga, they used to call it yogurt. Are you going to yoga tonight, Mum?
Yeah.
So, how funny.
Yeah.
Dear.
In the concept of helping people at any time when they need help, I created an online program. So Mrs. Non-Geek Me came up with so I've written my book, which is Creating Calm Amid Chaos, which can be picked up in hard copy, audio, as well as Kindle. And then I've created a little online program as well. And the online program teaches you my 10 points to de-stress, but it also shares 5 kinesiology techniques that are very useful to defuse some of the stresses in your life. I do 3 angel readings. So I think there's a shell essence, a Australian animal one of my angel heart ones, and a couple of others. So there's 5 readings there. And then there's some PDFs that you can download and just print off and have around, so they help you. So, if people are looking for some simple help, my simple 5-week program is very simple, and it's all about me. So that can be purchased from my website, Kanique.com.
Wonderful. And, of course, people can connect with you on Facebook, Marnie.
They can, yes, absolutely.
Under Kanique Kinesiology. That's KINIQUE, Kinesiology.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So what, maybe as well as you're certainly very busy. You've been, since you wrote your book and had it published, I mean, wow. Since then, it's as though, what else is Marnie doing? Because you seem to be doing lots of things all the time. And I know that what you present on Facebook, your live interactions, and that's something else that has been created relatively
newly,
recently.
Yeah.
But people are picking up. I know another of our presenters, Janet Hickox, who is an astrologer, passionate about astrology, as you and I are about bodies. And Janet presents a daily broadcast, if you like, from Monday to Fridays, American time. So that would be Tuesdays to Saturdays down here in Australia. What I like about those Facebook presentations, Marnie, is that, yes, you do them live, and then they are still available.
Yes. And you can download them and put them on your website or YouTube or whatever. That's what the process I'm doing at the moment is. Some of my talks and different things that I've done, I'm downloading them and putting them on my YouTube channel. So, again, people can access them at any time. So people are getting an easier way to get the wisdom from practitioners and teachers and people. Or it's the stories, I think, Annette. People connect to your story, right? Stories are a big part of my business even. Whenever I use a product for a client, for whatever reason that product is used, I read the story of that product, and that story connects at a deeper level with my client's healing journey, which is why I wrote my book, why you write podcasts or you write blog posts, or it's your story. People connect with you as a person. Someone told me the other day that my essences and drops and sprays that I make for them is they call them a money in a pocket. I've got money in my pocket, they'll say. I'm like, oh, lovely. Because it reminds them to think, what would Marnie help me to work out, or what would Marnie say about this? Would it help me cope better with what I'm going through now? Right. And it's just that little reminder is step back from the stress. Marnie tells you, so what have I put in Henry that I can take out? People connect to that story. They understand. And for me, the blessing of Facebook as well, look, I know it has its challenges, and I know it's, done some bad things and stuff like that. But if you can focus on some of the magic and the blessings, you get something called a Facebook reminder most days. And it's a time previously in another year that you've made a statement or comment or put a picture up or something of a memory of something that happened in your life. And, you know, they are beautiful blessings to get on a daily basis. You look at them and you go, oh, and you don't always have to share them, because sometimes they're personal blessings and you go, oh, that's so lovely. But it's just that extra little memory. Your memories form part of your coping mechanism. So when you've had good memories, those memories are meant to inspire you at a later time. If you've had not so good memories, you can diffuse that memory by giving it a different option. You know, so you know, you've eaten something, and it's like you said with the yogurt. When you think of strawberry yogurt, you're going to think of your kids and a time when it was funny. You know, I can remember the time I said my son wanted something, and I said, oh, I can't afford that. And he told me to go to Franklin's and they'd give me some money. I went, what are you talking about? All he knew was, as a little bub, that I handed a card over and sometimes I asked for money back. He didn't understand I needed money in the bank to get that. But, you know, it became a joke in our house. I'll just ask Franklin's. They'll give it to you.
Well, mine...
You know, but how good is that to defuse a stressful trigger?
Yes.
I haven't got enough money, but Franklin's has. You know, it lightens the situation. It's not unreal, but it just lightens the stress trigger. So if it's not as stressful, it's not as danger-orientated, you can do something about it.
And isn't it interesting the concepts that children do get? Because I know my boys used to say, I'll just go to the hole in the wall, Mum.
Yeah.
They didn't understand, like your son, that we need money in the bank to be able to do any of those things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, humour to lighten any situation. And
and you know, if that's your only defence, if that's your only method of coping with some stress, well, go for it. Okay, one of my top 10 tips is to have the best ever experience. Now, sometimes that best ever can be a negative experience. So, just a classic example was an elderly man who woke up all the time to go to the toilet, and it used to frustrate him. So every night he'd wake up all night. By the morning, he'd be so angry, and he'd think about it all the time. And we just said to him, well, was that the worst night's sleep you'd ever had? And he just looked at me and laughed and said, that's ridiculous. And I said, absolutely, it's ridiculous. But does it not then add, it's not adding to Henry. It's actually filling up some Deliza. And he went, okay, I'll pay that one. So, you know, it diffused his anger. Because what good was it to be angry? He'd go to bed the next night. He was angry before he went to bed. He was angry again when he woke up. So by just being able to diffuse it with some simple language and say, you know what, that was the worst night's sleep I've ever had, and I'd like to draw the line under the sand now, it helped him to not add to that stress. It didn't change the fact he woke up a lot. I couldn't change that, but I could change his response or reaction to it.
Beautiful. We are so fortunate because we have the power of choice. Yes. Marnie, a friend recently said to me, have a wonderful Tuesday. CHOOSE. What a fabulous idea. So now, if I'm sending a text on a Tuesday or a Monday night, I write it that way. Yep. Marnie, thank you. 'Tis spring here in Australia, which means it's autumn on the other side of the world. Whatever your day might be, whatever your season, may you bring love and laughter and joy into your world and to those who you interact with. I look forward to being with you next week, where we will have more fun on Angel Heart Radio.
You've been listening to another fabulous program on Angel Heart Radio. Our goal is to remind you of how much you matter in the world and to let you know that we appreciate who you are in the world. You can check out who's on, when we're on, and who our guests are at angelheartradio.com. Everything is there. It's all just one click away. Angel Heart Radio programs are powerful tools to help you in your life and your life experience. They are not intended, nor should they, be used to replace your medical or legal advice. The views expressed by hosts, co-hosts, callers, guests and associates should not be construed as advice from Angel Heart Radio.